welcome everyone. Welcome to another Square One podcast. I'm Jason Taylor. I'm the business manager for the digital team here at Square One. Today I'm going to be speaking with Sam O'Brien about conversion optimization. I will allow Sam to. I don't want to steal your thunder, Sam. I want you to do yourself justice and introduce yourself. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Sam, and what we're going to be speaking about in more detail today.
Yeah, sure. So, Sam O'Brien, as you've mentioned, I work for a company called RingCentral. We're a technology company providing communications to workforces around the world. So, my role currently, I'm director of digital, and this seems weird because I come from a design background, but the way it works is, a lot of what I've done over the years has been focused on the user and focused on conversion rate optimization, and really learned, like my career moved from being pure design to being more conversion designer, to being more a conversion lead, to then going into digital and, running marketing campaigns and everything. And I think today we can just chat about what conversion rate optimization is. It's definitely a growing trend. I've seen more and more jobs coming out. And I think it's an interesting one for designers to look at because a lot of it's just user focused, looking at the user and looking, at the normal UX trends and doing research as you normally would. So it's a nice skill to add on.
Absolutely, because the added background here is I placed you many years ago at RingCentral. We were like, we didn't quite understand exactly what RingCentral was at the time.
We didn't.
Busted. But it turned out to be a great career path. But general. So maybe if you start by telling us, for me, understanding a little bit more about what customer rate optimization is really, or not customer, conversion rate optimization. Stop saying customer. What is that in general?
Yeah, I think, the short answer is it's basically getting people to do what you want them to do. So if you're a e-commerce brand, it's going to be to focus on getting users through an e-commerce funnel and checking out, and purchasing. So the further you go into it, the more you're going to focus on the micro conversions, and you're going to expand out. So maybe initially you're looking at your e-commerce funnel and you're trying to get people to convert on that. But as you get more in depth, you're going to look at everything. You'll look at your LinkedIn adverts you run and see which ones are the highest click-through rate. And it's literally a case of having version A and version B, or as many versions as you want, and putting them up against each other and competing, seeing which one wins, which one brings the most money in, which one hits the target that you're aiming for.
Okay. So as a designer, I think this is the interesting thing for me. How does that impact, your brain in terms of where do you start a process when you are given a piece of design work to focus on?
Yeah, I think it comes back to the basics where or what's become of design now, where if you're looking at UX first, like you're basically solving a problem for somebody, and if you understand the persona who you're going after, that's where you would start. You'd have a good persona, understand what you're trying to get out of the design. So again, if it's a whole website, but it's an e-commerce website and you're trying to get people into that funnel, like you would design for that and you would design for that journey. I think the difference is you've got to this point now where people they're focusing on a journey. They're focusing on stringing everything together. So instead of standing at one page and not really knowing where it fits into a website or into a campaign, they're thinking, more holistically about the entire journey. So from a designer, you'd question marketing and ask, what do they want to do? What are they trying to achieve? What are the metrics? And I think for designers, that's something we don't normally talk about, but it's a good skill to have. And when you start having conversations around metrics, you're then elevating where you're sat at the table, because then you can go in and sit with the CMO or even sit with finance and say, this is why we do this. This is why we need resource here.
So with that said, I'm looking into this in a bit more detail. I've seen the whole conversion rate. So how do you calculate your conversion rate? So that's something I've seen a lot of professionals in this area speaking about, conversion rates and calculating.
Yeah,
How does that work?
it's the again, like the basic form would be, for us, a lot of it is about lead forms. So the amount of visitors who come to the website and the percentage of them that convert as a lead. And then again, as I said earlier, you can get further down the funnel, so you can then focus on, is it the amount of visitors that come to the website and view a certain page, or is it the amount of the amount of impressions you serve up on a Twitter ad, and the amount of them that click through to the website. So you're really looking at all these different points, but it is the percentage of people who take the action that you want them to take. And what we tend to do is we're driven, because we're a business to business company, we're driven on pipeline. So we will look at how many people come to the website and how many people end up with submitting a lead form, but then we'll go further down. So we'll have, experience A, experience B, and which one drove the most pipeline, which one technically is worth more to the business. And from there, we'll then take that and iterate on that again. And it's all about just getting more bang for your buck, really. We can grow visitors, but at the same time, if we can grow conversion rate, we end up getting a lot more out of our marketing budget.
Yeah. So with that said, I guess in terms of your site at the moment that you work on, how have you how strong is your conversion rate in comparison to, I guess, where it used to be when you started with RingCentral, and what are some of the things that you've done that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone ups and downs. It's a constant job. You're constantly optimizing, and just because something works one day, it may stop working, and that has happened to us. We've had pages converting, which some people call unicorn pages. They convert at like 11-12%, which is really good. And then 6 months later, you revisit that page, and it's converting at like 2%, and you're questioning what's changed. And a lot of what we do is go back and look at what's changed to try and understand if we've made a change that we can then go back and edit. But sometimes there is no reason. It just happens. Trends change, people change, behavior changes. So you have to keep refreshing things.
Yeah.
I think in terms of what we've done, we've gone through the basics, and we've gone through the big things. So we've done simple tests, changing lead forms, changing the positioning of lead forms, changing like copy, changing the way that we talk about our product. And then we've gone on to bigger things where we've done full redesigns and have had to monitor the redesign and say, how has this entire set of pages, like 30 pages, performed against these other 30 pages? And then you have to go in and, if it's a redesign which we've technically been told to have because it's come from like a rebrand or whatever, then we have to take that information, knowing that the change has already happened, but then start to build on it and iterate and improve it until we get back to the metrics that we want to see.
Right. And with that, is there any particular tools that are more prominently used in this area? So if I was a designer and I thought, right, let me have a look at what Sam's talking about, is there somewhere where you would direct them to maybe have a look at specific tools or methodologies?
Yeah, I mean, as bad as this is, like Excel is a very big tool to be used because you are just going to want to have ways of looking at your data.
Ratios and data, yeah.
Yeah. But then, like, again, this falls into user experience. If you're looking at heat maps, what people are actually doing on your website, tools like that, like Crazy Frog and Hotjar and there's loads of them that have popped up. But tools which allow you to see what's happening on a website, where people are clicking, how far they're going down the page, and then you're going to start monitoring metrics like bounce rate, time on page. Are they engaging with that page? Next, like how many pages are they looking at when they come and visit? So your normal like Google Analytics, or we use Adobe at RingCentral, but your normal Adobe at Google will have most of the stuff you need, and then you'll just start adding. The more further down the funnel you go, and the further into conversion rate you get into, you will start looking at the heat mapping and even recording what's happening on the screen. And then I think, again, user experience, the front end of it, using tools like user testing. So once you've got a hypothesis, but before you spend time building it and you get it out there, put it in front of some users, get some initial feedback. We do this to speed up our iteration. It allows us to very quickly put like 5 different variations in front of some prospects or in front of some users, and get their initial feedback, which we'll then drop 3 of them, and we'll just take 2 to the market and test them with live customers. So it's again, I think the normal UX tools fit into this nicely.
Yeah. And I guess as a designer, you've got to be the right type of designer, because it does sound very analytical, and which a lot of people do fall into that category. Would you say working in this area has changed you as a designer and your approach in terms of how you design?
Yeah, I think because yes and no. I think if you're a good UX designer and you're spending time giving the customer what they want, then you already understand that sometimes you don't get to do all the things you want to do in the glossy design that you want. Sometimes things are going to step in. So I think you're always going to have to give way to certain things, and sometimes the nice design isn't going to win. But I think that's part of it. Like creativity often wins. If it's something new and something quite creative, it can catch the eye of people, especially when we're talking about LinkedIn ads and Twitter. So being willing, like the beauty of testing is it takes out the old question where you would present something to a CMO and they'd say, as a designer, you'd present it and they'd say, no, it's too bold. Like, we can't try that. Whereas now you can say, well, yeah, we can try it, and we'll get the data to back it up. So it almost gives you freedom to try a bit more, but at the same time, you've got to be humble, because a lot of the time you're also going to, be served up and realize that it was wrong, and the old boring one was right.
So yeah, you're still going to meet resistance, I guess.
Exactly.
To some of your ideas and concepts. And you're talking about the funnel. This funnel, is this ultimately, this is, I guess, a conversion funnel. It's like a sales funnel ultimately, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah. We're looking, like, initially it's attracting people, so people who don't know about us, and that's where we've got social things running, and we're not really asking them to take an action, so we're just measuring, like, what are they clicking on? Are they looking at us? Are they coming to the website? But we're not expecting them to convert. And then from there, they go down to the next level where, they're now interested. They know a little bit about us. Maybe they're comparing us to some competitors. Maybe they're just making sure we've got all the features that they need. So then we start serving up different ads, and we target them differently. So then we'll be measuring, like, from there, we expect them to become a lead, or at least start watching some good videos or downloading some content. And then the next stage is where we then, like, support. We work very closely with sales. So they've become a lead. How can we make sure that they did want to be a lead? They know what they're signing up to. It happens.
Because I know how that sometimes happens when you're using automated processes to do things, and then there's been times when you use a CRM system to do certain sales activities, and you call someone up and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No idea.
You clicked on something. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, you've got to have that feedback loop. Between sales and marketing, they have to work together.
Yeah. And I guess when you came to this role, your approach to design and creative and optimization would have been, definitely not what it is today. And there's obviously something about the way you work that's led to you growing into this position. What is it that you feel that has made you successful in this specific area? Really, what is it you have that's made this role suddenly develop?
I think curiosity more than anything. Wanting to know what actually causes people to do things. And I think it's, again, most designers are curious by nature. So I think really it is. It's having that desire to put something out there, and then learn from it. And I said it earlier, you have got to be humble, because you will do things which are wrong. So you need to be in the right environment where you're allowed to make mistakes, and you're allowed to try things. So I think if you've got the right environment and you're curious enough to go out and try things, and you've got a bit of thick skin where you can take a bit of a beating when it goes wrong, then you'll succeed.
Yeah. And I guess that's something every designer has to learn, right? And when I've worked with more junior designers, they tend to come in the market fresh with keen, great ideas, and then they realize that not everybody agrees with them.
Yeah.
And the process of actually realizing that sometimes you have to kind of negotiate and give in a little bit on that side of things. But I think that's an experience thing. But
Yeah.
it's good for I guess those guys to hear that from the more they hear that, the more likely they are to realize, yeah, I'm going to have to accept that they don't want to use this color palette on this particular design. One of the other things, I guess, when you're collecting data for the website, I guess it depends on what you're trying to achieve, what you focus on. But are there any specific elements that people should be focusing on and testing with regards to optimizing the response rates?
Yeah, I think people need you have to look at your own setup and what you've got going on. Making sure you've got one KPI, like one metric that matters. So everything you do, why you're doing it. A mistake people often make is they go out and they start trying to change a website, or they start trying to change campaigns, but they're just changing it to try and make it work better, but they don't really know what work better means. So, they end up getting lost as they go along, and one thing might start improving, but something else might start, declining, and in the end, it becomes a bit of a mess. So I think it really depends what the company's trying to achieve, but planning out, literally drawing out that journey and saying, okay, how many visitors do we get to the website? Is that enough for us to start optimizing? And if the answer is yes, then you start looking at, okay, now the key thing we want them to do is submit a lead form. So let's measure the amount of visitors that come and the amount of lead forms. And once you've got that piece cracked, then you move to the next point. How many of these lead forms become closed business? And then further down the funnel, how many of the closed business are then promoting us to other people? And I think if you map it out like that, and you can see actually this point here. So for instance, let's say it's the promoting. So it's the final step of the customer journey. If that's where the issue is, then that's where you start focusing, and that's where you'll put most of your energy. But if it's the first point and you just haven't got visibility, people don't know you, then you've got to go out there and find out, start with your social. How can I get more people to my website? What can I track there?
Yeah. And with that said, number of people visiting websites before you mentioned the phrase you said is before you start thinking about optimization. What's the ballpark number on that? If I'm launching my new business tomorrow and I'm saying, right, again, it depends on the size of the organization, what it is you're selling. But what kind of traffic are we talking about before people need to start focusing on being more strategic and talk about optimization of their data?
You can test with 1,000 people. If you've got 1,000 people come into the website, you can run a test. It's going to have to run for quite a while to get enough data to really call it a clear winner. So the alternative is you make the change, you record the date you made the change, and at that point you then monitor it and report back. And if it didn't work, you then have to go back to your old design. I think anything like 10,000 plus monthly visitors, you've got a decent amount you can start testing. We in our business, our web traffic is about 10% of what they get in the US. So if there's an idea that we want to test and it's taking us too long, sometimes we'll ship it over to their website and let them test it first, and we can get answers within a week. In the UK, it normally takes us normally a month to get a decent set of data to be able to call it.
Okay, okay. And in the future, is there any specific new developments in this area that people should be looking out for? Any new technologies or anything happening that's interesting at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, conversational tools such as like drift chatbots and things like that are becoming a big thing. I don't know actually, Jason, if you're seeing this much, but like conversational UX is starting to make its way up, and people looking to optimize
Mm.
for tools like Alexa and tools like that. I haven't got mine in my room. I was waiting for it to go off then. But yeah, I think you're going to start seeing that, like more of the conversational piece. We do have Drift on our website. We try, like, it's a bot. It talks to people. It's a chat bot. So we test different ways of talking, and if we mention these words, how does it go down? So it's moving at next level. And then obviously tools like AI, things like AI, and we've got a lot of AI infused tools now where we're starting to get, it's more machine learning, but we're starting to get information provided to us. I think there's probably, it's kind of a bit of shiny, whatever they call it, shiny toy syndrome, where people are always trying to jump on the hottest thing. So I think start with the basics and progress. But chat and conversation is definitely going to be big.
So funny you say, because I think, well, actually, I'm sure one of the events that we met at, I think it was about a year or 18 months ago, was about conversational data and design in particular. I think it was
Yeah.
around and so on. And at that moment in time, I think the kind of thing was, the general consensus was the technology that's being used for Alexa and this conversational stuff is really old. It's years and years out of date.
Yeah.
Very limited what can be done with such tools at the moment. So and that's obviously accelerated since that conversation and that particular event that we went to. So are you saying that you've seen a massive change in that now, and that's the new big thing for a lot of companies now,
Yeah. Again, in our field, we work in communications. So, it's not something that I work in and I don't get involved in, but in terms of testing, you like taking the conversational piece. Think when you call Barclays, for instance, and you're on the phone to them, and you've got to go through. It's still a funnel. You've got to press, it's an IVR. You've got to press 1 for this or 2 for that, or you've got to say a certain word to get to the point. And when you think, if you're trying to buy something, if you're phoning up like AO, for instance, I don't know if they do calls, but if you're talking to them and you're trying to get to the point where you're buying something, you've still got to optimize that. If you're dealing with a bot who's coming back and feeding back the information over the phone, you've still got to get to the end goal, and there's still going to be friction between you and that end goal. So I think that's where companies are now starting to invest a bit more, because automation and having bots take out some of the legwork for the reps is obviously saving time. And the other really cool thing that we do is actually you can have, like, our sales team they can listen into calls and they can record intent and the feeling and the keywords that have been mentioned on the call, and then report that back to the staff. So again, not something I get involved in at the moment, but in the future, you could download the last 100 conversations that sales teams have, look to see which ones converted at the highest rate, which ones, closed business, which ones didn't, and look to see what were the core topics that were mentioned, what keywords were mentioned, and then start weaving that into the sales team and say, okay, when you talk about collaboration instead of a phone system, people are a lot more interested and they're converting higher.
Yeah.
So I think conversation will be a big piece.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, Sam, I thank you very much for your insight today. That's given me a lot to think about. I'm probably going to go and talk to the sales team now. In general, but no, it's been really interesting, and ultimately some, for a layman like myself, a lot to think about and read up on and find out a bit more. So I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Great to chat. Cheers, Jason.
All good.